Good morning, everyone. My name is Riley, and today we're going to be talking about our final week of the Brightspace summer sessions called Course Management. So last week, you may have seen the recording. We talked about all things discussions, assignments, and quizzes, and how to put them into the content tool. So today we're going to be talking about setting up your gradebook, reviewing student progress, and also grading student submissions. So we are going to have a lot of fun today. So let me just share my screen and we'll hop right into it. All right. So now we have my Brightspace page up here, and I'm just going to go straight to a course. So I'm going to go to Riley's test course, which is what I've been using this whole time. And in here, we're going to start with the gradebook. So I'm going to go right over to grades. Now, it might be in a different place on your navigation bar because mine isn't the typical one that you see on a course. So find grades wherever it may be on your toolbar and just click on the tool. So grades opens on up, and depending on how many students you actually have, you will see all of them here. Notice that there is like a certain amount you can have per page, and it defaults to 20. So if you have a course with more than 20 students in it, you might want to change this to 50 just so you see all of the students on one page. But otherwise, you see it in a sort of horizontal lateral manner. We have the student's name to begin with, and then we have the final grades in the front and at the end. And we also have each of our assessed items, as I would call them. So we have things like free write exercise number 1, we have free write 2, free write 3, a writing process discussion, we have week 1, whatever that might be, we have final and literary analysis. They're all over the place. This isn't an actual course, thankfully, otherwise it'd be very confusing. But you can see we have a bunch of grade items here, and some of them are assigned to specific tools and some of them are not. But we'll talk about that in a little bit. What we are going to look at is the setup wizard, because if you didn't see that first page we just saw, it's probably because your gradebook isn't set up yet, and that's totally fine. It is a very simple process. Brightspace makes it super simple to set up your gradebook, so we will just go through the setup wizard. But first, I want to review the sort of settings that you can define in this setup wizard. So you will be defining a grading system, whether it's points or weighted or formulaic. We'll have different details about how to release the final grade, grade calculations, default grade schemes, and all of this fun stuff. So all of this that you see on this page is stuff that we actually do in the setup wizard. And if you haven't set up your gradebook yet, you will actually see the start button like closer to the top of the page because there won't be anything to summarize. So we're going to click on Start, and it opens up step 1 of 7. So on this first step, you just choose your grading system, whether that's weighted or points or formula. We do ask if you are going to do a formula grading system to reach out via the help desk so that Kat or I, but probably Kat, will be able to help you set up your formula so that it works correctly. You can choose to do weighted or points, as I mentioned, and it kind of gives some examples if you're not sure which way you want to go. And do know that you can change this at any point. I'm not sure what effect it would have on your gradebook after things start getting graded, but you can change this at any point during the course. So once you've selected your grading system, you just click on Continue to go to step 2. And that is final grade released. So there's actually a couple things here that we do recommend. We recommend first and foremost that you calculate the final grade and maybe just give an idea to the students that this is subject to change because it is calculated as the semester goes on. So if you don't want to do that, that's totally fine. It's just a recommendation. But our other recommendation, if you do choose to do the calculated final grade, is to automatically release the final grade. And again, that kind of comes with its own caveat because the final grade does change as the semester goes through, but we find that it's kind of nice for the students to know where they're at in the course with their scores and everything if we have the final grade automatically released. And then there's nothing for you to do manually, which is good as well. So moving right along, we'll click Continue and go to step 3. We have grade calculations. So this is where you can choose whether you want to drop ungraded items or treat them as a 0. So this is kind of the difference between whether you have everything set up before the course starts or whether you're kind of doing things during the course's progression. So if you're creating grade items and accessible items before the course starts, then you might want to drop your ungraded items, because otherwise you'll have all of your grade items and they'll all come up as zeros, and then it'll appear as a 0 for the students. And some of them might understand why that is the case, but some of them might not. So to kind of alleviate some anxiety, it might be good to just drop the ungraded items. But again, we can change this at any time. So if you want to start by treating them as zeros, you can. And if you find that it's just a bit too confusing for students or you don't like how it looks, you can just drop them as well. And then we also say to automatically keep the final grade updated, just so you don't have to do anything manually, which is also nice. But again, up to you. So click on through to step 4. We have organization schemes and percentage here. So I just have the default scheme. I believe that you can set up your own grade schemes on this Schemes tab. I have not done that, but I know Kat has done it in a previous Brightspace recording where she has talked about how she made a pass-fail scheme, because some of her assignments are pass-fail. So if you have any questions about that, please send us a help desk ticket. We can help you set up a new scheme if you'd rather. But percentage in general is just kind of your 100% based on how many points they have out of the total amount of points that can be achieved. So basic stuff. Click continue to go to step 5, and steps 5 through 7 are kind of like student view based. This is kind of a good example. It's asking us how many decimals we want displayed in the gradebook itself, because when the students click on grades, they only see their own stuff, but how many decimal points are we giving, or decimal places are we giving them to see? So if you have something like 97.65, that's fine. If you would rather it be 1 decimal place, then that's up to you as well. I think standard, we usually keep it at 2, but that's up to you. So click on continue, and we have some grade details. So what are they going to see when they go into their gradebook? And what are you going to see when you look at your gradebook for the whole class? So we can see their points grade, which is just the points grade associated with the grade item. We also have grade scheme symbols, which are kind of just the symbol associated with the grade they were given. And the grade scheme color, which is like green, yellow, or red, depending on how well or how badly they did on an assignment or a discussion. It kind of shows the color if you choose to do that. I think it looks fun, but maybe it'll be a little anxiety-inducing to a student to see that they are in the red, but I think they also kind of know if they got a low grade. So it's whether you want a visualization of that or not. And again, we have our decimals displayed. I think this one is actually for the student view, as it says up here. The one previously was for your own view, so you can have a different amount of decimals compared to what the student sees. And then we could also see the number of characters displayed for text items. So if you have some feedback that you have in the gradebook, or maybe there is a text response in the gradebook somewhere, it'll only be 50 characters, but you can change that. And then we can choose to display the final grade calculation to users. So that is for student view, and I imagine you could come back in here and change that if you wanted to, if you didn't want it automatically displayed. And then step 7 is just our summary, so it's just making sure that everything we clicked on is what we want, and then we click finish, and we have our gradebook set up. So now it says we're ready to do all of the fun stuff for gradebooks. So it gives us this special page, but if you go past this or you like navigate away from it, you won't see it ever again. So it's just a special little tool page for after you complete your setup. But you could do all of these things from the already set tabs at the top. So you can create a new grade category, which is what you could do in Manage Grades. You can create a new grade item, which you can also do in Manage Grades. Or if you watch the recording from last week, you can create new grade items as you're making assignments and as you're making discussions. So you could be very automatic, or you could do it on its own. You can also import some grades, which I believe you could do in the Enter Grades area. You can create a new grade scheme, like you can in the Schemes tab, manage your grade items and categories, like you can in Manage Grades, and then Enter Grades, like you can in the Enter Grades area. So there's a lot of, like all of these things are available already. It's just kind of coalesced into this one page, which is nice after your setup. I also want to mention, if you do want to change any of your setup settings, you don't have to go back through the 7-step setup wizard. You can just click on settings over on the right, and it should bring up most of the options. So we have like some personal display options, so for your own view and not for the students. So we have things like your points grade, scheme symbols, scheme colors, the number of characters, number of columns, which is useful, number of users. So pretty good stuff. We also have where you can start when you click on your grades tool. You can either choose to start on the enter grades page or the manage grades page, or pretty much anything. You can also go over to org unit display options, which is the student view. So you can go through those items as well. And then finally, you could go to calculation options and change like your grading system, how your final grade is released. So pretty much everything from the setup wizard is here in the settings for the gradebook. So you don't have to go back through the 7 steps if you know you just want to change one thing. So that's just something to keep in mind. All right, so clicking back on the grades tool and getting back to our grades area, I want to show you the manage grades tab real quick. So manage grades is where you could see all of your grade items and if they're associated with a tool or not, and if they have any categories. So you can tell I don't have any categories because they would be in sort of this light blue color like grade item is, and they'd have different things underneath them. But I can definitely go through and make one if I wanted to. So say I want to make a category for all my free write exercises. That might be a good idea. So I'll click on new and then category, and I'll put free write exercises. So that's the big name for it, but maybe my short name is FW for free write. I can add a description for that if I want. I can choose like the overall grading for my category, whether it can exceed the points that I allotted to it, or if I can exclude it from the final grade calculation. So if you have items, grade items that you want excluded from your final grade calculation, that is an option. We can do distribution of points across the items within this category. We can also display class averages. Like there's a lot of stuff you can do with categories. There's also restrictions, but I'm just going to create this category for organizational purposes. So I've now created a category and it is down here. And if I want to add some of my grade items to the category, I can just sort of edit it with the context menu and change the category on this first page to the category I want. And then I can click save and close and it goes straight into my new category. So I'll do that quickly for the other two as well. So I'll change my category. And as you're looking at these edit pages for these grade items, you can see that you can define how many points they get, if they can exceed the points, if this is a bonus assignment, or if they can be excluded from the final grade calculation. So there's all these fun things you could do on the grade item itself. So now that I have all of my grade items now in here, now I have a nice category, and if I go to enter grades, that category will show up along the top. So click on enter grades, and there it is over here. So it actually shows up with the short name, but I know the long name is free write exercises, and it has all 3 of these free writes sort of aligned underneath it. Now you might be wondering, how can you reorder these? Because some of mine look really out of order. Well, it's pretty simple. You can actually come up here and click on more actions and then reorder them. And it just gives you like a 1 through however many items you have, and you just adjust the drop downs. So I don't want my free write exercises to be number 5. I want them to be number 1. And then it automatically changes the others to match whatever numbering I gave. So maybe I'll make this one number 2, 3 and 4 and 5. And then I'll click save, and all of them should be reordered in my list here, but also in my enter grades area. So that more actions and reorder on the manage grades tab affects how you and your students see the gradebook on the enter grades tab. So now everything looks pretty cool. All right, so other things you can do in this grades tool, in the manage grades area, you can create grade items. So I mentioned how you can create grade items when you're making assignments and when you're making discussions. That is great. You can also make them ahead of time, or if there is a grade item you want outside of the typical assignment or discussion, Like if you want something for attendance or something for participation, that could be a grade item that's unassociated with any tool. So what I mean by that is all of these free writes and this literary analysis, discussion, like everything I have here is actually connected to something in my course. So this is an assignment. I made it an assignment, so that's where it is. It's connected to something in assignments. Same with these two, they are connected to discussions that I have in the discussions tool. So if you do not see anything here in association and you think it should be associated, then that's a good thing to catch. And you would just have to go to whichever tool you want to associate your grade item to and just edit the appropriate like assignment or discussion and just add or go to the grade item dropdown and just change the dropdown. So I will actually do something for this because I do have a quiz that I don't have in my gradebook at all, even though it's on my course. So I'll show you how to create a grade item and then retroactively connect it. So I'll click on New Item. You have a bunch of options here, so you can choose whether it's a numeric grade item, a pass-fail, formula, calculated, text. So then I will actually choose a numeric because it's a quiz. I will say it is quiz 1 because I know that's what I called it. And maybe my short name will be Q1, just so it appears short and sweet. No category for this one, but if I did want to create a new one, I could. I think the maximum points I have is 3. But I could make this 10 max points, and then even if the quiz is only worth 3 points, it'll calculate it for me. So I could do that. It is just its own thing. It's not a bonus, so I won't do anything with that. Everything else looks good. No restrictions, and then save and close it. And we'll have a new grade item. And just as with anything else in Brightspace, any new things that you create go to the bottom. So now it's below my final project, but we know how to reorder things now, so I won't do it right now. But now you can see here under association, there's nothing here. So even though it's quiz 1, it's not connected to a quiz. So I know it is a quiz because I created it. So I'm going to come up to my quizzes tool. And here's my quiz 1. I can click edit. And then on the assessment tab, under grade item, because this is the only unassociated grade item, it's the only option I have. So I can click on this because I intended to associate this quiz with this grade item. But if I didn't make this, I could always add one from here. So that's the nice thing about quizzes, discussions, assignments. You can always add a new one and it automatically creates a connection between this new grade item and the assignment, quiz, discussion you just made. But if you want to do it retroactively like I'm doing, you can just click quiz 1, save and close, and then I come back to grades and it should be in my gradebook. So if I come down to manage grades one more time, it's now associated in quizzes, and whatever grade they get when it's over here in quizzes will come right over to the gradebook. So if you're wondering why things aren't transferring over, this might be it. But if you have questions at all, if something isn't working or operating the way you think it should, definitely give us a help desk ticket and we'll help you out. So that's pretty much the gradebook and setting it up. And I actually want to talk about grading student submissions now because we have a gradebook, so might as well grade some items so that it can populate. So what we're going to do first is actually come over to assignments. So say you have a bunch of assignments, you're ready to grade them. You can click on the assignments tool. And actually, before I do that, I do want to show you something real quick. The quick eval tool. So I have a bunch of things in here, like assignments, I think a discussion or two, and a quiz that I know I'm going to have to grade. So if I click on tools and then quick eval, it opens up this nifty tool where it shows you all the stuff that needs to be graded. Now, I only have one student in this course, and it's a demo student, but that student has done 4 things, and I need to grade all of them. So if I wanted to just come in here and just kind of make it down the line and just grade a whole bunch of stuff, I can do that. You can see this one's a discussion, this one's an assignment, this one is also an assignment. Hey, Stuart. And this one is a quiz. I'm just going through the quick eval. I did the setup gradebook. I can go back over it if you like, but I am recording it so that, you know, it's in the recording. But we could pick right up where we are right now. I'm just talking about how to grade student submissions. So we're talking about assignments, discussions, and quizzes. So this is a really quick way to do it overall. It's a tool that's available in your tools area here, and then it's just right here about 4 down. And it opens up all of the available items for grading for everyone in your course. So it could be slightly overwhelming, but you can see there's discussions, assignments, and quizzes. And you can also see like a sort of progress bar over on the right with how many are completed. So in this discussion, it is completed by my 1 student, 1 out of 1, but I haven't evaluated yet or published it. So you can see that in those 2 hoops. Over on this free write number 1, I have evaluated and published that grading, but there is a new submission because I did something interesting over there. But on free write 3, they did submit something and I have to evaluate it. And then for this quiz, they did do it and it is auto graded because it was all multiple choice, so it's already done, but I could just review it if I want to. So you could click on any of these things from here and just evaluate it. And if you had multiple submissions for this assignment, you could evaluate all of them and just kind of go through the pages of how many students have submitted. Or you could just see the submission list and kind of pick and choose who you want to do at this moment. And then for more actions, you can publish all of the grades if you're done with them, or you could dismiss this until a certain date if you don't really want to look at it just yet. So you have those options. There is also a quick eval from the homepage of Brightspace, and it shows you all of your grading for all of your courses. So if you wanted to do it that way, if you just felt like grading all of your assignments across all sections of all courses you're teaching, that would be from the homepage of Brightspace. And you could use this nifty filter to filter by a certain course, but if you're in a specific course, you can filter by a certain assignment or quiz or something like that. So you can view it by activity, or even just submissions, and you can see the students' names here and then kind of pick it up this way. So that's just kind of one way to access your submissions, but the other way that is a little more like topical or categorized rather is by doing it through the actual tools. So we can click on the assignments tool and look at all of our assignment submissions, and then discussions and assess the topics, and then quizzes and grade them from there. So I have a couple different assignments in here, and you can tell that they are ready for evaluation, or rather they are capable of assessment if they have a little ribbon. So you can have ungraded assignments, but usually when you're entering a point value, it means that you're going to be evaluating them. So these ribbons mean that you can actually evaluate them, and they have a grade item associated, which is also important if you want to put them in the gradebook. So for free write number 3, I can see that I have 1 submission completed here, but none evaluated or published. So that's where I'm going to go. You can just click on the name of your assignment and it opens up all of your submissions in a list. So you can see all of your student names, unless in the assignment creation process you chose to anonymously mark them, then you won't see their names. But if you did not choose that, you will see their names and you can evaluate over here on the right, or you could just kind of click on their name and it opens up in a new page. Before I do that, you can see there is a users tab, so I could view it by user, or I can click on submissions and view it by submissions. So I can just kind of click on it from here if I'd rather do that. And then the student's name is still over on the right. But I'll do it by user just because I feel like that's more fun. So I'll click on the name of the student. It'll open up in this evaluation tool, and it's going to change whatever submission they had to a PDF, so I can then annotate it if I want to. So in Brightspace, we have some annotation tools, like there's this marker up here where we can draw on it or highlight some things. We can highlight some text and erase whatever we've done. We can also do some sticky notes down here. So if you click on that little page icon, it gives you the option to change your color of sticky note, and then you kind of just drag it down. And I believe you can drag it. Yeah, if you click on this little icon, you could drag it wherever you need it. So if you wanted to make a note about this right here, you could say something like that. And as you click away from it, it just kind of collapses into that little icon, and you could just hover over it to look at it again. So those are the sticky notes, and you can also do shapes. So if you wanted to put a check mark next to something, like a big section of a report or something, you could do that. You can also X something out if it's unnecessary. You can put a star, a key. There's a lot of stuff you could do. There's also a text box if you want to just freely text or freely type over a box. You can click on the text box, and I believe you just kind of, I'm new to this one specifically, but I think you could just, oh yeah, you just click on it anywhere and it starts typing. So I'll click on the box, click on my black text here, and just start typing away. And I don't think you could, oh yeah, you can move it. I'm learning as I'm doing this. You can move it after you're done typing, so if you wanted to put it somewhere else, you could just kind of drag it around, make it bigger if you wanted to type more, and then change your font size and everything like that. You can also make lines between things, and then you can download this specific sort of annotated version of their document. So this would download it as a PDF, but if you're looking to download it in its native form, I think you just kind of go back to user submissions, and you can download the file in its native document type. So this one's a docx for Word, and I can download that as a docx from here. So if I wanted to go back and annotate that again, I just click on it, it opens up the thing, and I can go back in and add all of my notes. Now over on the right, you can add your grade. So if I think that this looks good, I can add my amount of points. And this is something I set up when I set up the actual assignment. I said it's worth 15 points, so that's what it's out of. And then I could provide some lovely feedback over here on the right, and the student will see it once I publish it. And I could also record audio or video if I'd rather, respond to the submission in that form. So this is where you can kind of choose whether you'd rather publish this feedback to the student right now, which means they'll get a notification and they'll be able to see their grade, or if you'd rather save it as a draft and publish when you're done with everyone's, you could do that as well. So I'll save my draft, and it gives me a little confirmation at the bottom, and then I'll just click back to submissions. So if you do choose to do that, it says that you have your draft saved, and that does mean you will have to publish the feedback manually at some point. So the students don't see it just yet, but if you do want them to, you can just check the box next to their name in the submissions page. And if you have a whole bunch of students you're ready to publish feedback for, you can just click this blank box on the top to highlight all of the boxes, and then click Publish Feedback, yes, and then it'll say Published over here on the right. So the student should get your annotations, they should get your comments if you left any, and it should go straight to the gradebook. So if I click on grades, it should bring it up. Free write number 3, the student now has 15 out of 15, and they're good to go. So it did publish, we're good to go. So if you don't see it in the gradebook and you know you graded it, it's probably because you didn't publish it. So that's just something to know. But if you need to ask us, we can definitely look for, the inconsistencies, because there are some weird little quirks. So do you have any questions about the assignment sort of grading or evaluation? All right. So on to discussions, which looks a little bit different, but it has the same sort of idea. So I'll go straight to the discussions tool. And with discussions, you also want to look out for the little ribbon that says it includes assessment, because not every discussion topic will need to be assessed by whatever, criteria that you want. So this one does include assessment, and I know I need to assess it because I have some threads in here and some posts. I also have this one that includes assessment, but nothing's been done in it, so I don't need to actually grade it. So to grade a discussion, you can just click on the context menu, which is that little downward caret icon, and then assess topic is in the middle of your options. And that will just not come up if it doesn't have the assessment ribbon on it. You could always change the settings on your discussion topics to include assessment afterwards if you want to, but this assess topic only comes up when assessment is available. So it opens up, and kind of like the assignments, it has the student's name, and then it has topic score beneath it. You can also look at it from a different view with this assessments tab, and that brings up the student's name again, but you could just click on the student's name at that point instead of the topic score. So either way, whatever you decide to do, if you click on it, it opens up in a new tab, or a new window actually, and you can see the student's post on the bottom, so you can read their entire post. And then you can come back up here and provide some general feedback. And I didn't mention this in the assignment feedback area, but you can also click insert stuff and add a video note if you'd rather talk. So that's up to you. But then the topic score is actually in the top right of this window instead of right above the feedback. So just something to look out for. And you can just type in your score. I'll give this an 8 out of 10. And once you're done, it's the same thing as the assignments. You either save the draft or you publish it immediately. So if I did choose to publish it immediately, it'll go straight to the gradebook, send a notification out to the student, and they'll be able to see their grades and their feedback. So in this case, I'll just do it automatically so I don't have to worry about it. And I can see the status is published on this one. So this is good in the discussion area. If you click on this assessments tab, you'll be able to see the status of all of the graded parts of the student's discussion. So I can see this is published, and if I go to the gradebook, I can see that in the writing process area, I have it all graded and published, which is great. So then finally, for quizzes, it's a little bit different because my quiz was auto-graded, but it does not populate here in the gradebook. And this happens a lot to people, so I'm actually glad this happened because I didn't think it would, but it did. So if I click on quizzes, I will see all of my quizzes that I have ready to go, and I'm looking for that ribbon again just to make sure there's a grade item. And earlier on in this recording, I didn't have a grade item for it, so I created one in the gradebook and retroactively connected it so you can see how that's done. But here, when you're in quizzes, you can just click on the little context menu and click grade to go through and look at the attempts from different students. So if you have like essay questions, this is how you're going to look at them and review them. But mine were all multiple choice, and I think I had one short answer question that I provided like a variety of answers for, so that if they got one of those right, it would work. But you would just click on attempt 1 and it will show you the entire attempt. You can also view it by the attempt or by questions if you'd rather do that. So you have a couple options up here. But I think in this instance, it's easier to look at it from the student. So I will click on attempt 1. It'll open up in the same page, and you can see it's already auto-graded. So I have a final score of 2 out of 3. I intentionally answered it wrong just so I could see it. But I can see these were all right because they have check marks. It has a score, but I could change that if I wanted to. This is just the auto-graded score. I got this wrong, so I could change that if I wanted to override it. And then for the short answer, they got one of the answers that I provided correct, so they got the score for that. So if I wanted to change anything, there is a blue update button in the bottom right that would update the score, but this still isn't published, so the students still can't see it no matter what. So I'm going to change that. First thing you want to do if it is not publishing to the gradebook is do that little check mark thing that we did with the assignments and click publish feedback. And I'll say yes. And now it says it's published 10:38 a.m., which is right now. So I'm going to go back to the gradebook and see if it is published. And I'm pretty sure it's not, because there is something I need to do on the settings end, and it is still not published. So I know what's wrong. When you go to the quizzes tool and you're setting up your quizzes, there is one check mark that gets overlooked pretty easily, and it's understandable. So what I'm going to do is click edit up here on the context menu for my quiz, and under assessment, because there's an assessment tab you can look at, there is this auto export to grades. So this is important because it'll export your published quiz grades to the gradebook. And if this is not checked, it's just not going to show up in the gradebook even if you publish it a million times. So I would say, just to be safe, unless you're just waiting until the last moment to publish the quiz grades, if it's like a final or something, I would just check this in the assessment tab to begin with if you're making a quiz of any kind, just so you don't have to worry about it later. But if it is like a big, like midterm or final, and you want to hold off just in case like the grading is wrong and you're like, I don't want to, concern any students, then you can leave this unchecked. But this is definitely what was the issue. So if I click save and close, I know I published my grades. So I'll come over to the gradebook, scroll on over to the right, And there's my quiz grade, 6.67 out of 10. So it actually worked out, and it was just that one check mark in the assessment tab. So keep that in mind going forward. And if you forget about it, we know what the issue is, so definitely reach out. If it takes more than 10 minutes to figure it out, then it's not worth it. So please just email us. Do you have any questions about any of those assessment items? All right. Well, I had one thing to talk about after that, and that was reviewing student progress, because there is a nifty little class progress tool in this navigation bar that kind of gives you an overview of all of your students' activity and interaction with your course. So when I click on class progress, I can see all of my students, all one of my students, and there are a couple different columns here. So you get a max of 4 columns, and you can change them at any time you want. You can change them depending on whatever you want to see here. So the ones I have selected are content completed, so how far have they gotten through my course content? So how much have they clicked on, how much have they completed in terms of assignments and discussions, and it's 5 out of 17, so they're not doing too hot. Objectives, I'm probably going to change that because it's not really relevant to me. The student has not logged in, which makes sense because all I do is impersonate the student, so I never log in physically with them. So they've never logged into Brightspace. And then their overall grades. So we have a final grade calculation of 84.76, just with all the stuff that has been assessed for them so far. So what I mean by changing these columns is the settings up here on class progress. So if you click on settings, you can see the 4 things that have been selected for my course, but you can change them. So we have the 4 that we just discussed, but say I want to change objectives completion, I can click on the context menu and replace it. And there are a couple different things. So if I have like a lot of discussions going on in my course, maybe I want the discussions participation. So how many have they read? So how many have they clicked on? How many threads have they made and how many replies? If I have a lot of quizzes going on, I can do a quiz performance summary. So how well are they doing on those quizzes? I can also do assignment performance. So if I do a lot of assignments, same thing. And content visited is one we already have. And system access is also kind of nice because it tells you how many times they've actually been in Brightspace. So you can kind of see if they're just dipping out for periods of time, you know, just to check up on them. So I'll click on assignments performance summary. And then for login history, I'm going to replace that and put discussions there just for fun. And once you're done switching all of these around, you can click Save and Close to go back to your class progress and see the changes. So this student has submitted to 100% of my assignments, which is great. They have 1 thread out of all my discussions, which is fine. And then the other 2 things are the same. So this will show up for all of your students in your course, and it'll show you all of these different content items, and whenever you change them, it'll change them for the students. And you can actually click on the student name to see even more detail. So if you want to get a little crazy, you can. So if I click on a student, I can see their score overall for my course. I can see how many grades they've received and what they were on and what specific assignments or discussions, and what is my feedback? What did I give them? So you can really drill down and see everything for a student all at once. Something that one of the instructors brought up to me was this discussions area where you can see how many posts were authored. You can click on the post from here. If they posted in a whole bunch of discussions, you can see how many threads they have in each like discussion forum, which is the overall category. And you can see all of those from there. The assignments, you can see all these different items. It's just very in-depth. So if you have stuff you want to look at for a specific student just to make sure they're doing their work, it's good to click on the student's name in class progress to see all of these details. And if you did have more than 1 student, you would see like a left and right arrow towards the top, so you could just kind of page through your students. You wouldn't have to go back and click on a name. You could just click on the arrows. But since I only have 1, they don't come up. So, are there any questions about that? Alrighty. Well, that's all I have for the recording, but I will stop that and stop my presentation here, and I'll just hop in and stop the recording. All right.